When we think of China today, the first things that probably come to mind are these futuristic cities, maybe immense economic power. But beneath those big headlines, there's a much more complicated and honestly a more interesting story unfolding. In this explainer, we're going to dive into these really profound, often contradictory forces that are shaping modern China. We've got a nation caught between engineering this grand future and a generation that seems to be quietly, well, opting out. Let's dig into this central paradox. And this, right here, is the paradox we're exploring. On one side, you have the state pushing forward with these monumental projects, literally engineering a new China for tomorrow. But then on the other side, you've got the youth, the very people who are supposed to inherit that future, and they're expressing this deep disillusionment by staging zombie graduation photos. They're just sprawled out on the ground, which is such a striking visual of their exhaustion with the whole system. It's a really powerful statement about a disconnect that runs deep. So where does this feeling even come from? Let's get into the tangible symptoms of this disconnect. And a good place to start is with the immense economic pressures facing millions of young people all across the country. Okay, look at this number. It's just staggering. 65 million. That's the estimated number of empty residential units across China. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that is enough empty homes to house the entire population of France. It's this stark physical symbol of a property market that was built on a scale that it far outpaced the actual demand. When researching this topic, it becomes pretty clear that the term ghost city, which we hear all the time in the media, is a little bit of a misnomer. These aren't just abandoned towns. See, many of them were intentionally built way ahead of demand as part of this grand long-term strategy to urbanize the country. The idea was, if you build it, they will come. And while some have started to fill up, the sheer scale of the vacancy, that remains a huge economic challenge. And this economic strain, it's felt most sharply in the job market. The official youth unemployment rate has been hovering around a really concerning 21%. But what's really interesting is that some researchers, for instance at Peking University, suggest that if you include what they call full-time kids, so young people who are unemployed but living at home and not actively looking for a job, the real figure could be as high as 46.5%. We're talking almost half. So in response to this relentless pressure, a pretty powerful cultural shift has been taking place. It really kicked off back in 2021 with an online post by a man named Lu Huazhang, who argued for a minimalist life. He called it Tang Ping, which translates to lying flat. And his simple idea to just opt out of the rat race, it resonated with millions of people. And look, this isn't just one single idea. It's a whole spectrum of disengagement. It starts with this feeling of nejuan, the sense that you're trapped in hyper-competition for smaller and smaller rewards. From there, some people choose Tang Ping, or lying flat, where they consciously reject the brutal 996 work culture. A more extreme step is bailan, which means let it rot, and that's a much deeper sense of just giving up. And for some, the final step is what they call runology, the study of how to run or emigrate, to escape all these pressures entirely. So here's a crucial point. This disillusionment isn't just about the current economy. It's actually deeply rooted in a decades-old system of social stratification that has created this invisible barrier for millions of people. And that barrier is called the hukou system. It was established way back in the 1950s, and it's basically a household registration document that ties every citizen to their official birthplace. And this is the critical part. It dictates their access to essential social services, things like public schools, healthcare, and pensions. And this chart really illustrates the real-world consequences. If you have a rural hukou but you move to a city for work, like the 177 million migrant workers in China, you're often treated like a second-class resident. Your kids might not be able to attend the local public schools, you have restricted access to healthcare and pensions, and you can face discrimination in the job market. It creates this massive systemic barrier to upward mobility. All right, so let's switch gears and look at the other side of our paradox. How is the state responding? Well, instead of directly addressing all this youth discontent, the focus seems to be on engineering the future through these monumental, technocratic projects on a scale that's, well, it's almost unimaginable. One of the most ambitious of these is the Great Green Wall of China. It actually started back in 1978. It's a massive reforestation project designed to create a 4,500-kilometer-long belt of trees to hold back the expanding Gobi Desert. We're talking one of the largest ecological engineering projects in human history. And the global impact of this is truly significant. I mean, NASA data shows that China is responsible for a quarter of the entire planet's increase in green areas since the year 2000. And a lot of that is because of these ambitious forestry programs.
It's an effort that is literally reshaping the planet's ecology.
Now, running parallel to this environmental engineering is an equally ambitious project of social engineering, the widely discussed but often very misunderstood social credit system.
One really important detail that often gets overlooked here is that the system isn't what it's commonly portrayed to be, in science fiction. It is not a single, all-seeing score for every citizen. As of 2026, its primary focus is actually on corporate regulation, things like creating a more trustworthy and professional business environment by tracking contract compliance and fraud.
So this is where we are. We've got these two powerful, competing narratives unfolding at the exact same time. You could call it a great standoff, and it's forcing the entire nation to recalibrate.
On the one hand, you have the state, and it is forging ahead with its grand, top-down vision. It's building a future of environmental stability with projects like the Green Wall, and a future of digital efficiency and trust with the social credit system. But on the other hand, the very people who are supposed to power and populate that grand future, well, they're busy engineering their own, much smaller futures. They're engaging in this quiet form of resistance, recalibrating what success even means to them, moving away from wealth and status, and towards simplicity and just well-being. This whole situation raises a really interesting question, and it's probably the one that's going to define China for years to come. Can a nation's top-down blueprint for the future actually succeed if the next generation from the bottom up chooses not to participate in it? It's a standoff between ambition and apathy, and honestly, the outcome is anything but certain.